Welcome to the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, an unfiltered look into the global vacation and short-term rental industry.
I'm Mateo Bradford.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside view and take on the short-term rental industry like no other podcast can.
Good morning, Mateo. How are you?
Brother, I'm fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. Last week we went ahead and did the spring forum, which was I want to speak about that a little bit here. We'll get into that like briefly, talk about the ups and downs of spring forum. But next week you and I are going to be at STR Wealth in Nashville. Mm-hmm. So excited about that. Today is episode 96. I can't believe it. Like crazy. 100 is right around the corner. We have a great guest for our 100th episode, recording tomorrow for that, actually, to go out on our 100th. Really excited about that. But yeah, let's talk. Let's go ahead and introduce the guest, but I do want to pause before we get into too much and talk about Spring Forum, because unfortunately, Verma, I love you. It was underwhelming, and I'm going to speak no BS on my thoughts on VRMA Spring Forum. Not going to pull any punches. All right. But with that said, we have an amazing guest. I'll let you go ahead and introduce Teo.
Did you really just go into VRMA?
Dude, I have to.
I'm excited about our guest because
I want to know about the VRMA. I want to know.
Yeah, I do too.
Like
right.
Right.
So, I usually get into these introductions. I'm excited about this one. This one's close to home. This one's family. Someone I have an immense amount of respect and love for in this industry. One of the brightest and most brilliant minds out there. A business leader in the space, an innovator in the space. The one and only Andreia Santos. Welcome to the No BS podcast. Finally, what took you so long?
Oh man, it's just this is such a weird time slot for me, so it's always tough for me to book it. But no, I'm really happy that we pulled through, and I'm happy to be doing this with you guys. I'm really excited to hear about your thoughts on Burma because so much love there, but I get it. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, we're excited to have you on and learn about your story. But yeah, I want to quickly talk about VRMA. And so as a proud member of Verma and a committee member for years, continuing to be a committee member, excited to be on Teo's and our DEI. We were a subcommittee. Now we actually are a committee. So I'm excited about that. I don't know if it's VRMA's fault, but there was nobody there. It was hard. Like as a vendor standpoint, this is going on my 7th year with VRMA. So both Spring Forum back then, when I first started, it wasn't Spring Forum. It was East and then it was West, I think, but whatever. It still happened in spring. They just call it something different now. This was the worst showing in all the years that I've been there. And there's a lot of things that went into that. And I think number one being COVID had a big problem, and I know like talking about COVID years later, this was booked years ago. And from my understanding, Kansas City was supposed to be an international location during COVID. They threw a bunch of money at it as a deposit. We lost that deposit and Verma only got some of that money back. And to go ahead and save face and save some of that money, they decided to go ahead and said, screw it. We'll have a spring forum here. It's the middle of friggin' winter. It's in Kansas City. It's not a vacation destination. I'm hoping it's lesson learned because it was 2/3, maybe 4/5 vendors to actual property managers. And of the property managers that were there, I'd say 1/3 of those property managers were actually speaking. So like, as far as the pool for vendors to go ahead and actually make business, it's a lot of fucking money to go ahead and participate in these things. There's so much money thrown at, and I understand it and I get it. And I'm not mad at Verma, but at the same time, every vendor like that, it was like a ghost town. And I'm sorry I'm putting this out there, Verma, but it's the truth. And I think there's a couple of things that are going to go right that's going to save this for them. But if they have another swing and miss, it's not a good look for Verma. and I'm a proud Verma member. What is going to happen though is internationals in Orlando. We're going to knock it out of the park. It's going to be great.
Yep.
Spring Forum next year is in New Orleans. We're going to knock it out of the park. It's going to be great. So that is what's going to save this. But like, it just can't happen again.
Well, yeah, I think there's two things around that, right? And yes, so yeah, DEI chair, VRMA member, proud VRMA member, right? And someone that's working to help VRMA be better, whether it's DEI, whether it's, whatever it is, expanding the membership base, like all of the things that we know and value VRMA to be and what VRMA can be. Like, it's going to take the work of everyone, the vendors, the managers, to come in. How do you fix a situation like that? You get your community involved, right? Like, you figure out what to do. Like, I think it's more of a process thing, right? Because you have people who are eager and have great ideas, and I think it's coming to a point where VRMA recognizes it, but it's also, VRMA is its own entity, an organization with its own issues, right? So
right. Its own
right, working through all of those things, and just, again, we get to see, both sides of it, but, and we also actively participate and understand the frustration. So like, yeah, it's gonna have to change, but I think it is. I think, it's competition. What does that do, right? Rising tides lift all boats, right? But as my boy David Ngati says, it's not always a good thing. Like,
right.
you gotta be a leader. You gotta push that. So let's take that and go right into our guest story, because unless
you got something to say.
Well,
we don't do anything basic.
Well, prior to the transition, I love Verma. I love going there. I always do Mateo. We go way back at Verma, but it all depends on the location. It so much depends on the location, right? Like the turnout, the success of the event. I think I didn't go to the spring one, obviously, but I did go to the international one in the fall. And
amazing.
Did you like it? I mean, Vegas is not my favorite.
Oh, no. Vegas is not my favorite place, but as far as the amount of people there, it doesn't have to be your favorite place. It has to be a place that people want to travel to. Exactly. I don't care what time of year it is. Like Kansas City, and Kansas City was a cool city. Like I played some pickleball. Like I had like some weird stuff. Like, it was awesome. Like, I had fun there. Yeah. But as a vendor and looking at it with my director of sales hat on and looking at it when I'm trying to look at ROI. Like, day one, I went in there, I'm like, oh shit, I have to pivot, and it's partnerships all day. That's the only thing I can focus on, because of me there the whole day. I might have 2 deals that are not partnership deals. Yeah. That's hard when you're throwing thousands. So I agree with you, location. And no matter what time of the year leadership at VRMA or any of these organizations should never be going, oh, I think we can get a great deal if we go to Kansas City. Or maybe we're going to get a great deal if we go to like some other Midwest, like Chicago. I think the reason Chicago worked, Spring Forum, and the only reason it worked, it was the first time that everyone was starting to feel comfortable after COVID to travel. And Spring Forum in Chicago actually worked because people were like, screw it, we're going to meet. Like, I can't wait. I haven't seen these people.
It was a great time to go to Chicago. It was like, it snowed the day we flew in. 2 days later, we're 70 degrees at a Cubs game. Like, yeah.
But any other circumstances,
it was all the best parts of Chicago. It was like right after restaurant week. Like, it was well done, right? Like,
but it was lucky. I still think it was lucky. My 2 cents.
Point, everything you're saying is like what was so important about the location, right? And that's really what matters. It's like what's going on at the location that makes it great. And that analysis has to be really strategically done way before. And, it's just not something, you don't just throw a huge event where people are paying thousands of dollars to sponsor, to attend, to showcase at. You don't just say like, well, we'll do it at Kansas City in the spring, right? Because we have a credit there.
Right.
I completely disagree with you, John. Chicago's going to win every time, unless you're doing it in the winter. Chicago, spring through fall, you're going to win.
Yeah, all day long. True, but it was also April. Like, it was actually, I agree.
It was right time. It was right time.
I agree.
It was circumstance. I'll give you the COVID bump. I will. I'll give you the COVID bump. I'll give you that because that's true.
But give that to me.
Chicago is for the win as long as it's not wintertime.
Well, and the interesting thing, and I do want to get to our guests. The interesting thing about this too is like they book these years ahead. They know where they're going in like 2026. Like they already know. Like
Yeah.
they know where we're going. Like because it takes a lot of time. And there's lots of this is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I need them to put it. I need them to do it international in Montreal so I can go. I haven't been.
You know what? Fall in Montreal is the best time to be there. Summer's a shit show. It's good fun, but it's a shit show. But the fall in Montreal is beautiful. You have the changing of the leaves and like everybody just gets into cozy vibes and you rent chalets and you go, it's just
I'm a New England boy. So I grew up in New England. I was born in Maine, high school in Vermont. I'm
you get it.
Familiar with the
Dude,
that
let me they convinced me to want to go there in the wintertime because of like
Mateo doesn't do good in cold.
If I'm properly attired, I'm fine. All right, if I'm properly attired. So speaking of Montreal, can we talk about maritime law real quick? Like how did you get into this space? Like everyone that comes on the show, we want to highlight their journey and just talk to how they got here. Cause I don't think, we've yet to meet the person who came up here and was like, vacation rentals has been my life goal. I'm just living we see a lot of people living their dreams, doing amazing things, but no one was like, just all day long.
Well, vacation rentals may not be, but vacations are a lifetime goal. So let's put it that way. And yeah, man, maritime law. Okay, so the backstory. The backstory is I really wanted to get into shipping. So I have a family history in shipping. And I really wanted to do that. I went to school in England, Southampton University, same as sort of as Paul, who you guys know, SCRs.
Yep.
And studied out there. Unfortunately, I graduated during the crash, 2009. So, while I saw like this prosperous legal career in the UK, I was like, the UK is kind of going under right now. Time to go back to Canada, where there was no, crash whatsoever. So went back to Canada, obviously, with my UK law degree, didn't translate to the French way. And so I had to, so I went to Air Canada, started there as a paralegal. And I remember them telling me, you're overqualified for this. Why do you want to do this? And I'm like, well, aren't you lucky? And then they said like, well, you're hired then. And so I did. And then
I love that attitude, by the way.
You had completed your law studies. You were a lawyer, right? So
So, but at the same time, like it's a whole thing, right? Common law and civil code in Quebec. Quebec is a very strange, I'm from Montreal, right? So Quebec is French and civil code and whatever. So then I worked at Air Canada for, about 4 years in their legal department. And I really touched on everything there, from employment law to cargo to commercial law, marketing. I really touched everything. More aircraft mortgages, aircraft remortgaging, like launching their low-cost carrier, doing the uniforms. Like I really touched on everything. It was an amazing experience. And then on top of it, our head office was near the airport. And so literally every Friday you show up with your suitcase and you just go to the airport and hop on a flight. And so, I'd go back to England on the weekends. It was such a great time for me. It was so, so, so great. What was really hard was just realizing that, you're 20, whatever it was, 5, 6 or whatever I was. And I was like, I've been here for 4 years. Like, what am I gonna keep this up? Am I staying here? This is a, different thing that I imagined. So I left. I went into real estate, which worked for a private real estate firm. And there I had great exposure to the whole real estate acquisition, transactions, leasing, and it was largely retail, but I touched retail, commercial, and residential as well. And this was just around, probably 2013, 14, and then around there. And
your LinkedIn says 2013 to 2015. Just, I'm here for you.
Thank you for just holding me to that. So then I was there for a while. And And I loved it, but I needed something creative to do, like sitting down at a desk and drafting terms and conditions all day. It's just not who I am. It's just not who I am. And it wasn't maritime law. I love maritime law. I love shipping. I love everything in that industry. But
Wait,
Who says that? But who says that?
you're the first
You
person
gotta
ever.
come from that world to know, like, in maritime law is like gangster beyond belief. It really is. It's crazy. If you've ever been exposed to it, like, I understand the fascination from it. Of
right,
it.
it's
Yeah, it is.
international. You're dealing with
And it's
claims.
logistics.
Yeah.
Logistics, but it's like bulk logistics. You're talking about, ships that are going under that have salvage, whatever claims. And, it's wild. It's just cowboys and Indians, and it's wild. It's really, really, really fun. I love it. I absolutely love it. Especially law, because there's very few legal practices that you can do that are really international, right? When you're a lawyer, you're kind of really stuck to where you've written the bar, where you're qualified. So this was really a way for me to continue traveling, because I've always been obsessed with traveling. So yeah, I was in real estate, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Love this. I remember being given a $10 million check to go buy a building. And I was like in a taxi holding this $10 million check. And I was like, what are my options right now? And sure enough, but what my options were? I was like, I want this check to have my name on it, right? I want this check to have my name on it one day. So I was like, I'm never going to do that working for someone else. And, but it's not like I really knew what it was, but I was always entrepreneurial at heart. My dad, had started a business from our basement and then grew it to like a multinational. So I had seen it go from 0 to 100 and then back down and then, whatever,
Wow.
readjust. So I was always very entrepreneurial. And so I started basically Fülhaus squatting in one of our offices that we managed at the real estate firm. And I was just like, listen, I told my boss, listen, I'm going to start this side gig. Like, don't mind me, So, we were like, Fülhaus. It was available. We're like, such a great name. The name is, it's based on Buckminster Fuller, who's the architect who's designed many, many things. And you guys can look him up. He's a, huge hero in architecture. And he had a specific tie to Montreal because he built this thing called the Geodesic Dome in Montreal, which is this giant dome on an island. And then the house part of Fülhaus is Bauhaus. So everything is kind of a nod to Montreal. It's nod to the 60s and 70s, the heyday of design, the sort of the design era that really built that city, and that is so unique in North America. When you go there, you'll notice that you won't have that same architecture anywhere else. I mean, certain places, yes, of course, but it's just this really clash of historic, architecture, and then also, this really Art Deco and mid-century.
It kind of has a bohemian feel in an interesting.
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
I can't wait to go, because I feel like it has the class and sophistication of an old Europe city with kind of new world
100%.
appeal. Like that, and that's from looking at it from the other side of the fence. Now I really gotta go.
Yeah, exactly.
In the fall.
So you naturally fall in love with design of this city, right? And so Fülhaus has always kind of been a nod to like the architecture and design of that city. And so, we started out really just buying vintage designer products, like designer, home decor products, right? And online. So like vintage Eames loungers and like all of that stuff, sort of refinishing it and selling it online. It really picked up, right? So it picked up so much that a company back in, 2000, I guess this was 15, 16, called Flatbook reached out and asked us to help them sort of get their units up and running, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we did, and then they were scaling. This was like on the heels of Airbnb, right? So like it's right as Airbnb is taking off, and like people are starting to get into this, like, oh, I can rent a place and, rent it out online short term. And guess what? Everybody needs furniture, right? So we were just there at that critical time. And then we were really like, this authentically Montreal sort of design shop. And it was just a natural fit for us to kind of, grow in that space. Yeah. So it was actually an interesting story, because the way that I met Flatbook, which today you probably know as Sonder, I was actually going there for a job interview to be their head of real estate. I don't know, something real estate. And And my partner at the time was like, do you really want another 9 to 5? Like, you're leaving one. Do you really want another 9 to 5? We have this thing. It's maybe working. Let's see how it goes. So I go to them and I was like, listen, I respectfully decline the position, but would you like to hire us to design your spaces? And they're like, amazing. Take us, like, we have a unit upstairs. Do you want to come and see it? Can you do this? And that's how that whole momentum started with them. And, sure enough, word of mouth gets around and we start helping other sort of property managers and vacation rental managers expand and helping them scale their properties. And we, I really, with my business mind on, I kind of realized, hey, there's a model here, but it's not vintage because we couldn't keep going around in a U-Haul and finding vintage products. But there's a model here to get these places furnished where the owner or manager doesn't live where where their units are, and they need to have them furnished remotely. So who can they trust to do that? And so that's basically what we said we would do. It's like, let's get people up and running, no matter where they are, and that they can trust us to get it fully done and fully outfitted, ready to rent. So
logistics.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think that your clientele, you started off with, a flat, what do you call flat book, which is Sonder. Is your clientele, do you think it's more of the short-term rental side, or are you diving into that corporate housing, like multifamily lease arbitrage? I mean, obviously we know, like, at least it was the lease arbitrage kind of thing. Are they more of you're going in and like, we have 10 of these and they're all the same, we want you to go ahead and take care of them?
You know what? We're doing everything. It's any furnished real estate. I really believe that the industry is moving furnished, right? I mean, not everything will ever be fully furnished, but I think that North America is coming to the realization, and landlords and property owners are coming to the realization that if they furnish their real estate, they get better return. And, they also are less bound by certain tenancy regulation laws and terms, right? So it feels like the industry and real estate is really catching up to this furnished real estate world. Whether it's, short-term or midterm or long-term, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's something that's been happening. Obviously, in Europe, they've been doing furnished real estate for a really long time, right? You go to London, you can get a furnished flat, no problem. But here, it's just never really been the case. And unlike some other sort of furnishing partners and furnishing companies, I don't believe that the tenant should be the one to furnish their real estate. If you don't own it, why are you buying the furniture? I just don't think that really makes sense, right? And so I think that landlords and property owners, managers really have to get on board with, like, if you want somebody to live there, furnish it, at any term. I think it just makes a lot of sense that way. Unless it's truly like a long-term lease, I really think that, I don't own furniture, like we were saying on the break. I don't live somewhere permanently. I move around a lot. I rent up furnished real estate. I'm here for 6 months. I'm at the next place for 3. So I really think that more and more people are doing that. And real estate kind of has to cater to it. So we can call it what you want: short-term, midterm, long-term, student housing, corporate housing, blah, blah, blah. Those are just the demographics that you cater to.
Right.
I think it's just furnished real estate.
Interesting. I love it.
Everyone's in the AI thing, right?
Yeah.
Guys are using AI and so, like, let's talk about how we're getting here and what this is going to do. How is AI changing this aspect of the business? Because I think, one of the things, that is going to be interesting with this technology is how it interprets and how it works in creative spaces, right?
Yeah.
Like, and how it takes data and, starts getting into matters of taste and styles and colors and things. And can it look at a color and be like, that might be overly sensitive for somebody, right? Like, I got questions. So, talk about how this is kind of changing the space and how you're using it in your business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're really excited to do this. I think, again, business hat on, I was not an interior designer. I love design. I have a passion for it. I think everybody loves good design, right? Anywhere you go, you really
You would
appreciate
hope
it,
they at least appreciate it, right? Like,
right? So if I can do anything, it's really just create good design wherever we go, right? So, but one thing is really difficult that I realized in like furnishing these places, that you have to shop through so many different suppliers to get to that result, right? So how many different suppliers does it take to furnish a home or a unit or whatever it is, right? So you're talking about at least 10, 20 minimum, right? And no two units are the same. I mean, that's not true. Sometimes they are, but generally there's always a little bit of change, whether it's the artwork or the cushions, right? And managing all of that, trying to source it all, trying to figure out like, how to map this all out is really, really, really time consuming, difficult. And then put that against like stock levels, timelines, deliverables, budget, right? And then still cohesiveness. Does it look good, right? All of these different data points, right? They're effectively data points, right? So how do we facilitate this procurement process? Because we have designers that are just spending like hours and days to produce one unit, right? And it matters because it has to be good design. But I was like, how do we get them what they're looking for faster, or at least get to like 80% there, that like a designer can at least do the extra 20, right? And refine it and not go through 300 suppliers, because we have 300 suppliers, right? So, so we built an AI that we call Ludwig. And Ludwig effectively goes from your Pinterest board to a resembling furniture package that you can buy in one button. So yeah, so you upload any image, anything under the sun, and it'll understand the design, the colors, it'll look for similar products, and then filter through our database of products and suppliers in our network, our marketplace, and present to you a set of products that you can buy and all purchasable in one spot. So you don't have to go through like, wherever 5 different retailers to buy each item.
That's kind of dope.
Yeah.
Play with that. Now you're gonna make me put a Pinterest board together. I want to see what you come up with.
Yeah, I mean, like you can upload anything. Like I think my favorite thing is to show is like uploading a flamingo and kind of showing like it'll understand the color scheme. It'll understand the legs. So the legs on the furniture has got a similar like wiry sort of frame to it. And it's just a really interesting use case for this industry in particular, right? Because all of our clients always come to us with an idea of what they want their space to look like or feel like, right? Even when they say they don't, and they're like, you do it, then we do it. And they're like, well, I was thinking like this, So we're just like, how do we interpret this better? Because, a designer will sort of take on their own interpretation of an image. And then the client also fills that interpretation or that image with like all this other, language. They're like, I want it to look like this, but traditional. And we're like, what does traditional mean, right? Like what is contemporary to you or me, right? So I think that the language around design is actually, it's not consistent, right? So it's really hard to talk about it. And then the best reference that you have is an image. So the best thing that you can go off of is like, how do I make your design look like this or feel like this image? And that's what we've done. And it's really pretty good. And I'm shocked. I'm really shocked. But we have been at it for like, almost 3 years now, trying to build this out. And we have an amazing team of machine learning engineers and, developers. And this is actually all launching. So you guys, it's great timing. This is all launching in about 2 weeks.
Oh, we love it.
Yeah.
Love it. You heard it here first. We love that. And I think it's dope. So you take this and this springboards you, because it definitely cuts your time frame down, right? Makes you more efficient, right? It helps you get to yes quicker, right? Like it helps you get to that, from that vision in your head to a workable space in a faster time. I love it. Logistics.
Logistics, exactly. It's all logistics. It's true.
It's all logistics.
Yeah. And the thing is like users will be able to go online and do this, themselves. So you won't need to hire a designer. You can always upgrade. You can always get a designer to do this for you. I mean, it's also available to designers, but I think
Now
it's just
designers are going to be super niche, right? Like, so now it's because that's the one thing, right? Like with the creative arts, it's as unique as a fingerprint, right? Like everyone's is different. Like even if it looks the same, there's always a unique point that someone will have or see differently. So
We see it with Chat GPT, right? And it's all these,
yeah,
they're like, hey, we got Chat GPT and it can do all this work, but it waters down everything and it's just cookie cutter. Whereas, say you're a writer or you're a content creator and you're putting your stuff out there, like, you not using that's your differentiator. That's what's keeping you fresh and keeping you in front of everybody. And it's interesting. I love it.
until it can do stand-up comedy, I'm not scared. Like it's like,
no.
and it may be able to, like, it might put out some funny shit. Like, I'm actually gonna go do that. I'm gonna ask it to write a stand-up comedy script and see how horrible it comes out. Like,
See what the jokes are like. Yeah.
not,
Yeah, I was talking to somebody and I was like, isn't it interesting that the first thing, and not the first thing, but the most public thing that we've been using AI for is all of the creative art and work. Like,
or the
we-
work that people don't want to do, right? The
house cleaning robot. Like, where's that? I need that. I don't need somebody to write me a novel. I need
and the novel you get that it writes is shit. It's
Yeah.
not that good. It's like, it's okay. It's got some bones, but it's just, that's about it. And it's interesting. I agree with you. Yeah. Where's the one that wants to do the mundane tasks? These things that you're just, like,
but isn't that what people are using it for?
but to get lackluster results, I think.
Well, I'm not saying they're using it correctly, right? Because again, if you're using it correctly, it's giving you a baseline to work around and work off of, right? Like it's supposed to do the part that you can just come in and polish and run with. It's not, but as with everything, people just want the one pill solution, right? So they'll just be like, type me a review letter to this guest, and they won't even read through it. They'll just put the name in it, and it says like some crazy shit at the bottom. They're like, you didn't even read it. I'm like,
have you guys heard of a lot of sort of hosts and other people in the industry using Chat GPT for this, for reviews and other tools?
It's starting to come out, and it's starting to feed like, and it's hard, and you can it's like just getting seeded, what it is like. And I think that's where, and I hate regulations. Like, I'm not a big regulations guy. I don't want like a bunch of like laws, going back to your lawyer stuff here. Like, I don't want that. But at the same time, like there needs to be some sort of standards and guidelines of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And maybe it's just like, hey, we know these companies do it the right way. We know these companies are doing it the wrong way. But yeah, it's interesting.
I think the only place you're going to be able to police it is academia, right? Like, because that's the biggest thing. Like, I can't imagine if this was out. Like when we were in school, nobody would, like, it would have been insane. Like,
I had to write exams. Like, I had to memorize books, like cases.
Yeah.
I had to memorize this stuff and then write it by hand. Like, you're at the end of your exams, you're in so much pain. Like,
Yeah, no,
but the other part of this too is like we had the fact, like, remember when the internet first came out, like, and everyone was like that whole generation that first came out on the internet they didn't have to fact check. Like, they were just, oh yeah, this said this, and it was like, okay, well, it was on the internet. When we had to write reports with bibliography in a style, you had to quote sources. Like, you couldn't just put out this information. Like, now you can just, I'm Barack Obama, right? Like, or something crazy like that. And now, like, who's gonna fact check it? Like, it's crazy. I don't know. I agree with the regulations, but
it's interesting. So I'm a Gen Xer, right? The only, and Matteo, so are you. And the interesting thing about, what's that?
I think I'm a millennial. Is that?
Yeah, I think you're a millennial. You're younger. It goes Gen X and millennial, but Gen X is the only generation that truly started without internet, without tech, and now has gone into tech right at the beginning, and it's still kind of staying in the forefront of it. Like millennials came into it with tech. Yeah. And so, like, we know what it was like before, and we know what it's like now, but we still have to stay up with the times with the kids. the millennials and the Gen Zs, and like I still have to stay current with like my kids are Gen Zs. Oh,
Do you advertise on
Got to
TikTok?
know what's hot in the streets, John.
do I advertise on TikTok? No, but I
You haven't
do.
seen John's TikTok account?
But I do.
I have it.
Am
coming.
putting reels out on Instagram and stories, I guess, on Facebook. It's all the same thing. Probably should.
I know. It's like we're trying to get into it as well. And it's like we're also like in this realm of like, is it really useful for what we do? Right? Is it really catering? But honestly, like I mean, outside of like the regulation that we might be seeing in the next little while around it, I really do think it's got a different format that, everybody kind of has to get on board with. There's
I agree.
It's evolving.
Did a presentation at Vermin International all about the TikTok generation with a couple of good friends of mine, colleagues, and
It was actually pretty good. I got to give you
Yes.
your credit. It was good. I actually enjoyed that. Great group presentation. You had a good team.
hey, thank you so much. This has been great. Like, I'm really excited to see where this goes for you. I'm excited. Like, we're like, it just makes so much sense, and like, I think your growth is just wait. If someone wants to go ahead and use your services,
Yeah.
how what's their first step, and how should they go ahead and get a hold of you and your
I
team?
mean, first things first, go to the website, fülhaus.com, and that's FULHAUS.com.
We'll put a link in the comments too.
and just contact us through there. But in the next couple of weeks, you'll be seeing this platform go live, and so you'll be able to try it out for yourself and tell me what you think. Hey, it's gonna be buggy AF, right? So like, please don't hold me to this like amazing technology. It is cool. It's
That's
super
what we're
cool.
here for.
But it's starter. It's very starter. So yeah,
We're down for buggy as fuck.
Yeah. So let's
And we won't bullshit you. So we'll let you know
No
about
bullshit,
we'll
yeah.
let you know. So but look, it's family, like we'll be nice.
Hey, constructive, nice criticism.
Hey, we just put out the first of its kind murder mystery podcast that takes place in a short-term rental world, and it went live today. So we're all about first buggy, we're all about that. We're all about you. Hey, thank you so much. We're excited. If you like the podcast, make sure you go ahead and like us. Make sure you leave a review. Whether you're listening on Apple, you're listening on Spotify, you're listening on our website, or you're watching and listening on YouTube, leave a review. Let us know that what you think. And thanks so much. I had a blast having you on today.
It was great. Thank you guys so much for having me. Looking forward to seeing you guys at Verma.
Absolutely, me too.
Go check out Derailed.
This podcast is a Hospitality.fm production.